Aunt Amma became a widow when life was just beginning to look stable. Her husband had not been rich, but he had been strong. He farmed, hunted occasionally, and made sure there was always food in the house. When he fell sick and died suddenly, everything changed overnight. She was left with only one child, Olama. Olama was still small when her father was buried, too young to fully understand death, but old enough to feel the absence. From that day, it was just the two of them. Adama tried to be strong. She cried only at night when Olama was asleep. During the day, she tied her wrapper tightly around her waist and faced the village like a woman who refused to break. Life in their village was not kind to widows. A woman without a husband had no steady protection, no farmland of her own, no strong voice in village meetings. Farming was the main source of income, but land belonged mostly to men. Women worked, but rarely owned. Adama survived by doing small farm work for others. She weeded people's farms. She harvested crops. She carried heavy loads from the bush. In exchange, she received small coins or portions of food. Some days, she came home with a little yam. Some days, with maize. Some days, with nothing. The villagers liked her. They respected her quiet strength. They admired how she carried herself with dignity despite her condition. But they were poor too. No one had enough to spare. Olama grew up watching her mother struggle. She was a beautiful child with bright eyes and calm behavior. But beyond beauty, she had something more important: character. Adama trained her carefully. Respect elders, she would say. Greet everyone properly. Never let poverty make you rude. Olama listened. She fetched water without complaining. She swept their small hut every morning. She followed her mother to farms and helped as much as she could. The villagers often said, "Adama, your daughter will bring you joy one day." Adama would smile faintly. Joy felt far away. Food was never certain. Clothes were patched and repatched. When other children went to the small village school regularly, Olama sometimes stayed back because there was no money for books or writing materials. Adama felt the pain deeply. She wanted more for her daughter, but what could she do? The village offered little opportunity for women without husbands. The only businesses that brought real money, trading in large quantities, transporting goods, dealing in livestock, were controlled by men. Women sold small things: vegetables, firewood, palm oil in tiny bottles. The profit was small, and competition was many. There were nights Adama lay awake staring at the ceiling of her hut, thinking of ways to change their situation. She had strength, she had discipline, she had honesty, but strength alone did not create money. One evening, after a long day of weeding someone else's farm, she returned home exhausted. Olama had prepared thin porridge for them. They ate in silence. Adama looked at her daughter carefully. Olama smiled despite everything. That smile did something inside her. I cannot continue like this, Adama thought. The next few days, she observed more carefully. She watched what people bought in the market. She noticed which goods finished quickly. She listened when women complained about scarcity of certain items. An idea began to form slowly in her mind. It was not farming, it was not heavy labor, it was something different, but she needed courage. She needed to try something no other widow in the village had attempted before. One morning, before the sun fully rose, Adama woke up earlier than usual. She sat outside her hut quietly. The air was cool, the village was still waking up. She thought deeply. By the time Olama stepped outside rubbing her eyes, Adama had made up her mind. I have an idea, she said softly to herself. An idea that could either change their lives forever or leave them with nothing at all. Adama did not sleep much that night. The idea kept returning to her mind. Tomatoes. She had noticed something over the past few months. Whenever tomatoes were scarce in the village market, women complained loudly. The few traders who managed to bring some from neighboring villages sold out quickly. Prices would rise, yet people still bought them. Tomatoes were used in almost every meal. If she could grow them in large quantity, she could sell not just in her village, but in nearby ones too. The idea made sense. It was practical. It was needed. But reality followed immediately. She had no land. Adama lived in a small hut with a narrow piece of space in front. It was barely enough to dry cassava or sit outside in the evenings. Farming tomatoes required proper soil, space, and water. Still, she refused to let the idea die without trying. The next day, after finishing her usual farm work for someone else, she began making quiet inquiries. There were a few widows in the village who owned small portions of land inherited from their late husbands. There were also older women whose sons had moved away, leaving farmland unused. She decided to ask. Her first visit was to a woman named Nkem. Nkem owned a decent piece of land at the edge of the village. Adama had helped her weed the farm many times before. Adama greeted respectfully. Nkem, I came to ask for something, she said carefully. Nkem crossed her arms. What is it? Adama explained briefly. I want to start tomato farming. If you can lend me a small part of your land, I will work hard and give you a share of whatever I harvest. Nkem's face changed immediately. Tomato farming, she scoffed. Where will you get the money for seeds, for watering? You think farming is a child's play? I will manage, Adama said softly. I just need space. Nkem did not even think about it twice. My land is not for experiment, she snapped. Before Adama could say another word, the door was slammed in her face. The sound echoed in her chest. She stood there for a moment, embarrassed, then slowly turned away. Her second attempt was at Mama Ibere's house. Mama Ibere was older and kinder, or so Adama believed. She greeted her warmly and explained everything again. Mama Ibere listened this time. I understand your struggle, but all my farmland is already occupied. My nephews are using every part of it. Even a small portion? Adama asked. Mama Ibere shook her head. I'm sorry. The word sorry felt heavy. Adama thanked her and left. By evening, she returned home empty-handed. Olama saw her mother's face and immediately knew. It didn't work? She asked quietly. Adama shook her head. They sat in silence. For the first time since the idea came, doubt filled her heart. Maybe she was dreaming too big. Maybe widows were not meant to own farms. Maybe the village had already decided her limit. That night, there was no proper food in the house. They ate what little remained from the previous day. After eating, Olama lay down beside her mother. Mama, she said softly, will we always live like this? The question pierced Adama deeply. She pulled her daughter close. I don't know, she answered honestly. They cried quietly. Not loud cries, just silent tears that wet their pillows. It felt like every door had been shut against them. It felt like the village had no space for their dream. They eventually slept from exhaustion, not peace. The next morning, the sun rose like it always did, unconcerned with human struggles. Adama woke up with swollen eyes. For a moment, she considered giving up, going back to normal farm labor, accepting her position, surviving instead of dreaming. But something inside her refused to settle. She remembered someone, an old friend. They had grown up together before marriage separated their paths. She had not visited her in years. That friend had once told her, if ever you need help, come to me. Adama stood up slowly. Olama, she said, tying her wrapper firmly around her waist. I am going somewhere today. Where, Mama? Olama asked. To see someone who might still remember me. She stepped out of the hut with a small spark of hope, and she prayed silently that this would not be another door closing in her face. Adama walked a long distance that morning. The path to her old friend's house was not close to her hut. It was on the other side of the village, near the larger compounds where wealthier families lived. As she walked, her heart beat fast. What if her friend had changed? What if marriage and money had made her forget old bonds? Still, she kept going.
When she finally stood in front of the large compound, she hesitated for a moment before knocking on the wooden gate. A young boy opened it. "Yes?" he asked. "I came to see your mother, please," she replied politely. "Tell her Adama is here." The boy ran inside. A few moments later, a woman rushed out. "Adama?" she called out in disbelief. It was her, Ngozi. They stared each other for a few seconds, then embraced tightly. "Where have you been?" Ngozi asked warmly. "I have not seen you in years." Adama smiled weakly. "Life has not been easy." Ngozi led her inside. The compound was large and well kept. There were workers moving about. Bags of grains were stacked in a corner. It was clear that her friend had done well for herself. They sat down, and after exchanging greetings and short memories of their childhood, Ngozi's face grew serious. "Tell me why you came," she said gently. "You look troubled." Adama did not hide anything. She explained everything: the idea of tomato farming, the rejection she faced, the struggle she and Olama were enduring. "I need land," she said finally. "Just a small portion. I will work hard and give you returns." Ngozi listened quietly without interrupting. When Adama finished speaking, there was a short silence.
Then Ngozi smiled. "You came to the right place," she said. Adama blinked. Ngozi continued. "I have farmland that has been lying unused for some time. I will give you 1 full acre of land to use." Adama's eyes widened. "1 acre?" she repeated softly. "Yes," Ngozi replied. "You can use it freely." Adama struggled to speak. "And you will not give me any returns," Ngozi added. Adama shook her head immediately. "No, I cannot take it for free." Ngozi held her hand firmly. "You will only return the land to me after 4 years," she said. "That is all I ask." Tears filled Adama's eyes. She had prepared herself to beg. She had prepared herself for negotiation. She had not prepared herself for kindness this large. "Ngozi," she whispered. "Do not argue," Ngozi said firmly. "I have more than enough. You need this more than I do." Adama cried openly. When she finally left the compound, her steps were lighter than they had been in years. She ran almost halfway home. Olama saw her from a distance and rushed toward her. "Mama?" she asked anxiously. Adama grabbed her daughter and spun her around. "We have land," she said. Olama screamed in excitement. They hugged and laughed like people who had just won a treasure. For the first time in a long while, hope felt real. But land alone was not enough. Tomato farming required seeds. It required tools. It required watering sources. It required labor. Adama thought about it carefully. The next day, she returned to Ngozi's house again. She felt embarrassed asking for more, but she had no choice. "Ngozi," she said carefully, "I am grateful for the land, but I do not have the means to start fully." Ngozi did not even let her finish. "What do you need?" she asked directly. Adama explained: the seeds, farming tools, watering cans, and even labor, because she and Olama could not manage everything alone. Ngozi nodded. "Leave it to me," she said. Within days, everything was arranged. Quality tomato seeds were purchased, farming tools were delivered. Ngozi even paid workers to clear the 1-acre land and prepare the soil properly. Adama stood at the edge of the farmland the first day work began. She watched as workers tilled the soil. She watched as rows were marked neatly. She watched as seeds were planted carefully into the earth. It felt like a dream. She never imagined that someone would believe in her vision this much. The workers respected her instructions. Ngozi supervised quietly from a distance. Everything moved smoothly. When the planting was complete, Adama knelt down on the soil. She prayed, "Let this grow. Let this change our story." Days turned to weeks. Green shoots began to appear from the soil. Small at first, then stronger. Adama visited the farm every morning before the sun rose and every evening before it set. Olama followed her faithfully. The farming had officially begun, and for the first time since her husband's death, Adama felt something she had almost forgotten: expectation. Tomato farming required patience. From the day the seeds were planted,
Adama counted the weeks carefully. She had asked experienced farmers how long it would take before harvest. Between 2 and 3 months, one of them told her, if the soil is good and there's enough water. So she waited. The first month passed with excitement. The tiny green shoots pushed through the soil and stood upright. They looked healthy at first. Leaves spread out, the workers helped with watering, weeds were removed regularly.
Adama visited the farm every day without fail. By the second month, the plant had grown taller. Small yellow flowers began to appear. That was the stage she had been waiting for. Flowers meant fruit would follow. Olama clapped her hands the first day she saw the flowers. "Mama, it's working," she said happily. Adama smiled. "It will work," she replied, with confidence she prayed would become real. But when the fruit began to form, something was wrong. The tomatoes were growing, yes, but not well. Some were small and shriveled. Some had strange dark patches. Some fell off before they were fully formed. Adama frowned each time she examined them. This was not how good tomatoes were supposed to look. By the middle of the third month, the problem became obvious. The tomatoes were not market quality. They were uneven. Some were soft too quickly. Some refused to ripen properly. A few even rotted while still on the vine. Adama's heart tightened. She had invested everything into this farm. Ngozi had supported her. Workers had been paid. Seeds had been carefully chosen. She had followed every instruction given to her. So why was this happening? If she could not sell the tomatoes, there would be no profit. If there was no profit, she could not save. If she could not save, she would never own land of her own. The thought terrified her. She went to meet other farmers in the village. "I don't understand," she told them. "I water regularly, the soil was prepared well, the seeds were good. What am I doing wrong?" The men inspected the farm carefully. They bent down, touched the leaves, examined the fruits. "You are doing everything right," one of them said. "There's no pest attack," another added. "The soil looks fine," a third concluded. Nobody could explain it. Adama returned home that evening heavy-hearted. Olama noticed immediately. "Mama," she asked softly. Adama forced a smile. "We will find a solution." But inside, fear was growing. What if this failed? What if this was another closed door? Still, she refused to give up. She continued tending to the farm. She prayed over the land. She spoke to the plants softly sometimes, as if they could hear her. Then one morning, something strange happened. She arrived at the farm earlier than usual. The sun had not fully risen. The air was cool and quiet. As she approached the rows of tomato plants, she stopped abruptly. An old woman was standing inside the farmland. Very old, her back slightly bent, her hair completely grey, and she was urinating among the tomato plants. Adama's heart dropped. For a moment, she stood frozen. Was this the reason? She felt anger rise inside her, but when she looked closely at the woman's frail body, her anger softened. She walked closer calmly. "Grandmother, please, do not do this here." The old woman turned slowly and looked at her. Her eyes were sharp despite her age. Adama continued respectfully. "It may harm the crops. These tomatoes are my only hope." The old woman stared at her for a few seconds. Then she smiled. "Forgive me," she said quietly. "I will not do it again." Her voice was strangely steady. Adama nodded. "Thank you," she replied. The old woman adjusted her mappa and slowly walked away from the farm. Adama watched her until she disappeared down the path. A strange feeling passed through her, but she ignored it. She focused on checking the plants again before returning home. That night, she felt restless. The image of the old woman kept returning to her mind, but she pushed it away. The next morning, she woke up early again. Something pulled her to the farm quickly. She walked faster than usual. When she got there, she stopped. Her basket slipped from her hands. What she saw made her heart pound. The unexpected had happened. Adama could not believe her eyes.
The tomatoes that had looked weak and disappointing just days before were now completely different. They were big, round, bright red, full and firm. The dark patches had disappeared. The shriveled fruits were gone. Every plant was heavy with ripe tomatoes that looked as though they had been carefully polished. She stepped closer in disbelief. She touched one gently. It was perfect. She moved to another row. The same thing. Everywhere she looked, the 1-acre farm had transformed overnight. It did not look ordinary. It looked like something people would travel far to see. Adama stood there, speechless. Her heart was beating fast. "What happened?" she whispered. Just yesterday, she had been worried that everything would fail. Now, the farm looked better than any tomato farm in the entire village. She picked one fruit carefully and held it in her hand. It was large, smooth, and heavy. If anyone saw it, they would immediately imagine cooking stew with it. She felt tears gather in her eyes. Without wasting time, she lifted her wrapper and began to run home. "Hola, Ma!" she called even before reaching the hut. Her daughter rushed outside. "Mama, what is it?" "Come," Adama said breathlessly. "Come and see." They ran back together. When Olama saw the farm, she screamed in excitement. "Mama, they are beautiful!" They walked between the rows slowly, touching the fruits like people afraid the sight would disappear if they blinked. "This is God," Olama said softly. Adama nodded. She remembered the old woman. A strange thought crossed her mind, but she pushed it aside. There was no time to think too much. She needed to inform Ngozi immediately. They hurried to Ngozi's compound. Ngozi was shocked when she heard. "Already?" she asked. "You need to see it," Adama insisted. Ngozi followed them to the farm. When she arrived and saw the tomatoes, even she was speechless. "This is not ordinary," she murmured. Without wasting time, Ngozi took control of the situation. She arranged for workers immediately. Baskets were brought. Harvesting tools were gathered. Within hours, people began moving in and out of the farm. But news travels fast in a village. Before midday, others had seen the farm. Word spread quickly. "Have you seen Adama's tomatoes? They are bigger than any we have seen. They are fresh like something from another land." By afternoon, buyers from nearby villages started arriving. Some came on foot, some with bicycles, some with carts. They wanted to see for themselves. When they did, they were convinced. People did not argue about price much. They were eager. Baskets filled and emptied quickly. Tomatoes were measured, counted, and sold. By the end of the day, almost the entire harvest was gone. The next day, the remaining ones were cleared completely. Everything was sold. Every single tomato. Adama held the money in her hands and felt overwhelmed. She had never seen that amount of money before in her life. She counted it once, then again. It was more than she had imagined. Enough to save, enough to reinvest, enough to begin thinking about owning her own land. She went home that evening with her head high. Olama danced around the hut. "We did it!" her daughter shouted happily. Adama smiled, but inside, her heart was beating strangely. This had happened too suddenly, too perfectly. She should have been thinking only about celebration, but something else lingered quietly at the back of her mind. The image of the old woman returned again. The smile, the calm eyes. Adama shook her head. "Don't overthink," she told herself. Success had finally come. But she did not know that not everyone in the village was happy for her. And she did not know that something else was already moving silently behind her back. After counting the money from the harvest several times, Adama made a decision. She would repay Ngozi. Not for the land, because that had been given freely for 4 years, but for the seeds, the tools, and the workers she had funded at the beginning. Gratitude mattered to her. The next morning, Adama wrapped part of the money carefully in cloth and went to Ngozi's compound. Ngozi welcomed her warmly. "You look like someone whose prayers have been answered," she said with a smile. Adama knelt slightly and handed the money to her. "This is for everything you spent on me," she said. "I cannot forget what you did." Ngozi looked at the money but did not rush to collect it. "I did not help you so that you would repay me," she said softly. "I know," Adama replied, "but I must. I cannot carry blessing without showing appreciation." Ngozi smiled proudly. "I am happy your heart is still humble," she said. She accepted the money but placed her hand on Adama's head in blessing. "Your farm will continue to prosper," she declared. "This is only the beginning." They both smiled, and when she went home, Adama felt peace. But peace does not last easily in a village where success is rare. The same women who had refused to lend her land began to whisper. They gathered in corners of the market. They stood under trees pretending to discuss something else, but her name was always in their mouths. How did her tomatoes grow like that? It is not ordinary. No widow just wakes up and becomes rich. One of them said quietly, "She must have used charm." The rumors grew. Some even went further. Maybe she used her husband for ritual. The words were cruel, unkind, dangerous. Adama began to hear fragments of these conversations. At first, she felt hurt. She had suffered openly in that village. Everyone knew her struggle. Now that something good had happened, they were trying to turn it into something evil. She went to Ngozi again. "They are talking," she said quietly. "They say I used charm." Ngozi laughed calmly. "People always talk," she replied. "If you want to go far in life, you must learn to ignore noise." Adama sighed. "It is painful." Ngozi held her hands. "Do not answer them. Do not fight them. Let your results speak. Gossip dies when it finds no response." Adama nodded. She decided she would focus on her work.
The second planting season approached. She had saved some of the best tomato seeds from her harvest, carefully dried, carefully stored. They were special, strong, healthy. Meanwhile, the jealous women had been watching. They were tired of gossiping without action. "If she can do it, we can do it too," one of them said. "But where did she get those seeds?" another asked. "They must be different from the normal ones," someone whispered. Their curiosity turned into greed. "If we plant the same seeds, our tomatoes will grow the same way," one of them concluded. They began to plan. One afternoon, they noticed that Adama and Olama were heading toward the village square to buy food items and some household supplies. "This is our chance," one woman said. They waited until mother and daughter were far from the hut. Then they moved quietly toward Adama's small house. They knew exactly where she kept her farming items. The seeds were stored in a clay pot inside her hut, carefully covered and hidden. They entered quickly. Their hands shook, not from fear of being caught, but from excitement. They opened the pot. "There," one of them whispered. They took some of the tomato seeds, not all, just enough for their own farms. They covered the pot back the way they met it and left quietly. As they walked away, one of them laughed softly. "Soon we will see whose tomatoes are bigger." They did not know what they had taken. They did not know what had touched those seeds. They did not know that what they carried in their wrappers was not just seed. They had stolen something else, and they had no idea that they had just stolen a curse. The jealous women did not waste time. As soon as they got home with the stolen seeds, they locked themselves inside one of their huts. Their hearts were racing with excitement. "Open it," one of them whispered. They placed the clay pot on the floor and removed the cover carefully. The moment the lid lifted, something unexpected happened. A swarm of flies burst out of the pot. Thick, dark, aggressive. The flies rushed straight to their faces. The women screamed. They waved their hands wildly, trying to push the flies away, but the insects clung stubbornly to them. The hut filled with buzzing sounds. Within seconds, their skin began to itch and burn.
They ran outside in panic. Villagers gathered immediately. What happened? People asked. The women could not explain. By evening, their bodies began to react strangely. Their skin developed painful rashes. Their eyes swelled. Fever followed quickly. Their families panicked. They took them to herbalists in nearby villages. Different mixtures were prepared. Different prayers were said. Different sacrifices were made. Nothing worked. Their sickness worsened. They grew weak and restless. At night, they screamed from discomfort. During the day, they lay helpless. Still, they refused to confess what they had done. They kept wondering why such a thing would happen to them. Meanwhile, they never knew that the old woman had been watching everything from the very beginning. The day she was seen in Adama's farm, she had not come there by accident. She had guarded that land quietly. When Adama chose respect instead of insult, something shifted. The old woman had been touched. She had blessed that farmland that day. And when she saw the jealous women plotting to steal the seeds, she acted. The moment they entered Adama's hut, she had already exchanged the pot. What they carried away was not the original seed, it was a curse. And when they left, she quietly returned the real seeds to their place. Adama knew nothing about all of this. She continued her routine.
One morning, she went to the farm again to check on the new planting season. As she walked between the rows, she noticed someone standing at the edge of the field. It was the old woman. "You again?" Adama said calmly. The old woman smiled. This time, she moved closer. "You were kind to me," she said, "the day you found me here." Adama looked confused. "You did not insult me," the old woman continued. "You did not shout. You spoke with respect." Adama swallowed. "I only asked you not to harm my crops." The old woman nodded. "And because of that, I blessed your land." Adama's heart skipped. "Blessed?" she whispered. "Yes," the woman replied. "I watched your struggle. I saw your heart." She went on to explain everything. The jealousy, the stolen seeds, the exchange of the pot. Adama listened in shock. "What will happen to them?" she asked finally. The old woman's face grew serious. "They must confess publicly," she said. "They must go to the village square and admit what they did. That is the only way the sickness will leave them." Adama's heart felt heavy. "And if they don't?" she asked. The old woman did not answer directly. Instead, Adama asked the question that had been burning inside her. "Who are you?" The old woman only smiled. A strange wind passed through the farm, and before Adama could blink, she disappeared. Adama stood frozen. Her body trembled. She ran home immediately, her heart pounding. She told Olama everything. They were still talking when they heard loud cries outside the hut. Adama stepped outside. The jealous women were there, weak, sweating, their families supporting them. They fell to their knees in front of her. "We will confess," one of them cried. "We stole your seeds," another shouted weakly. "We were jealous," they admitted. "Forgive us." The entire village gathered. People murmured in shock. Adama stood there silently. Everything the old woman had said was happening exactly as she described. The women cried and begged. Adama's heart could have hardened, but it did not. "I forgive you," she said quietly. The moment the words left her mouth, something shifted. Within days, the women began to recover slowly. The rashes faded, the fever disappeared. They grew stronger little by little. The village never forgot what happened. From that day, nobody spoke ill of Adama again. Her farm flourished beyond imagination. She expanded gradually. After 2 years, she had acquired 12 acres of farmland in different parts of the village. She returned the 1-acre land to Ngozi, fully planted with tomatoes. Ngozi was overwhelmed with joy. "Keep using it," Adama told her. "Sell whatever it brings." Ngozi hugged her tightly. Adama's business grew larger. She never mentioned to anyone about the old woman. Only she and her daughter knew the secret to her success. She supplied tomatoes not only to her village, but to traders from distant towns. She became the richest farmer in the village. But wealth did not change her heart. She built housings. She built a small school for children whose parents could not afford education. She helped other widows start small businesses. She employed young men and women on her farms. And when the time came, she sent Olama abroad to study. People admired her success, but Adama never forgot. She never forgot the nights she cried. She never forgot rejection. She never forgot that her breakthrough began with one simple act: respect and kindness.